Hi, it's Jason from Fraser Valley Rose Farm, and I want to talk to you quickly about this diesel cab heater that I'm using to heat underneath this bench. You can see the bench is skirted, and I'm pumping the warm air underneath the bench. I'll be doing the same thing inside the house to the seedling heating bench I featured in a video last week, just to keep things warm enough in that 18 degrees Celsius range that they will thrive after coming out of the germination chamber that I showed you. So this whole idea came to me from a viewer named Denise Parento, who does some gardening or growing up in northern Alberta, so she would know a little something about growing in the cold. And she recommended to me that the diesel fuel that is powering this gas or this diesel heater, the cab heater, is a lot less expensive per unit of energy than my other options. Now, if I had natural gas as an option piped into the farm here, that would indeed be the least expensive option, but they'd have to pipe it in. That's a very expensive project. I don't think it's going to happen. So the other options I have basically are just propane or electric, both of which are about 4 times more expensive per unit of heat than the diesel. So this whole setup here is fairly inexpensive. A kit like this, these cheap Chinese diesel cab heaters, which would normally be used for the cab of a diesel truck or be used sometimes in campers or boats or cabins. People rig them up for all sorts of heating projects just because they are so inexpensive as a kit and also inexpensive to run, and they pump out a ton of heat. And that's the one thing I love about this, is that I built this bench to heat up with electricity. It's still rigged up for that. It still has the same setup I showed you before, but this pumps in so much heat so quickly that if I had a truly devastating cold snap that comes through here, while all of my roses are starting to come into flush now, they're starting to flush new leaves and new buds, if I got that cold snap, this would be able to keep up with whatever level of cold hits me. So I don't want to go too far into it. I'll show you some close-ups here, but I just wanted to say a couple of other quick things about it. You do have to be cautious with a setup like this and do your own research. One thing that you will have to have is you'll have to have power to it. In this case, I powered it with the same car battery that I was using to power my electric sprayer. That kind of makes it independent from AC power, so that's another handy feature of this, is that you can kind of run it anywhere. So if you are going to run it on AC power, you would need a power adapter or converter or some way to make this run off of your AC. The second thing I'll say is that it does have a very, very hot exhaust pipe, and that's something you have to count in. They obviously, when they're using this for RVs and boats and other flammable structures like cabins, they have to find a way to exhaust it properly. I've done that both in the house and here in the greenhouse. I found a way to exhaust it safely. I'm not going to show that to you really, because I think fire safety and doing those kinds of things is something that first of all, I'm not qualified to really give you technical advice on, and second of all, it's going to vary an awful lot depending on where you're running it and how you'll vent it. So just be aware that that is a problem you'll have to solve. Also, that these Chinese cab heaters come with awful, terrible instructions, and you're more likely to get some good advice going online to the RV forums and looking there than you would be relying on the printed instructions that come with these units. But the units themselves are fairly inexpensive. They run inexpensively, they pump out a ton of heat, and as long as you can solve those issues around powering them and venting them, you got it made. And sorry, before I go here, I just wanted to mention the clicking you hear behind me here is the fuel pump on this. This is about how loud this is. From a distance, I don't even hear it. So that's another good advantage of this kind of heater. It is relatively quiet. It comes with a control thermostat like this that runs up to the temperature you want. So I've got this set to its lowest temperature, and when it's set to its lowest temperature, what it does is it waits until it goes below that temperature to speed up the fuel pump and to pump more heat. But it's always running with some amount of heat coming out of the diesel heater. It can't just shut down off and on very quickly on its own, so it needs some build-up time, and then it needs some run-down time. So you couldn't run it on an external thermostat. You have to run it on the thermostat that comes with it. And when you run it on this thermostat that comes with it, it pretty much is on all of the time. If you do want to shut it off, you do shut it off from this controller, but then it takes a few minutes to just wind down and then shut off the diesel. Alright, thanks so much for watching, and if you have any questions on this video or on the topic of underbench heating or anything to do with propagation, please feel free to drop those into the comments below the video. I'll see what I can do to help.